In this part 2 of work-based and workplace learning opportunities for mobile learning to occur, we will look at how one could use the various tools available to be able to analyze the learning opportunities in the workplace. Because of the very nature of the mobile learning platform, it affords opportunity for teachers to design very engaging and interactive learning content for the students to have engaging and deep learning during the process of viewing the learning content. As with any learning programs, one needs to know their learners. They need to understand what is the psychological makeup of the learners and to therefore create an environment that is comfortable and safe for learning to occur. One needs to know the readiness to accept technology and use technology, and at points at which increasing engagement of the learner to ensure success. And it also requires a commitment and emotional motivation to want to learn and share knowledge with others. These are the founding principles on which mobile learning will succeed. This model is very useful in designing learning programs. It consists of 5 phases. And the phase 1 is to analyze the learning needs and the learning behavior of the learners, and then is to then design and develop the learning program, and then to deploy that and implement the learning program, and then evaluate the learning program in terms of its effectiveness. As with any learning program, the learning needs analysis is crucial so as to target the content that is relevant to the learner and to ensure that delivery of the content is in a style that is acceptable, and then to ensure that learning has occurred. Now, for mobile learning, a few additional requirements is to make sure that the current knowledge and skills can be assessed remotely, and to identify the gap in those areas, and to make sure that the expectations and goals of learning are very specific and measurable. And there must be an established need for that course, which has to be understood in terms of all stakeholders, and there may be resistance to learning which has to be matched. The content design, development and deployment will come in accordance to the mobile strategy. When analyzing the needs, one has to assess the current situation in which the individual is, and to define the problem and whether there's a performance gap. Once this is determined, then we can set specific targets to improve with the mobile learning strategy. This has to be incorporated into the work-based and workplace environment, and it has to be easily accessible. And once the learning content has been designed and deployed, they must be evaluated to ensure the effectiveness of the learning program. The learning needs analysis can be performed through interviews, to focus group questionnaires, and merely by observation. This can also be done through research into the environment to see the learning needs. Or generally, one can work based on one's own personal observational experience of the needs of the worker. Once these needs have been identified, they then need to be clearly translated to learning objectives and the content designed with mobile learning platforms in mind. In designing the learning program that will be delivered through a mobile platform, it is important to create one that meets the needs. The curriculum has to be very clearly designed to include all the media that will engage and attract the attention of the learner and allow for learning to occur meaningfully at the workplace. The pedagogy that will be used will be one in which will be useful for the student, where there will be appropriate sequencing, activities, and ability to practice skills so that the learner can absorb the learning that is required. Assessment has to be effectively delivered through mobile learning, and this has to be both formative and summative to allow for evaluation of the effectiveness of the learning. And feedback has to be provided periodically to ensure the student is engaged in the learning process. Specific forms of assessments to assess higher order thinking would be required, and this can be provided quite conveniently through the mobile platform with the use of branching scenarios, and this can be used in the workplace to reinforce the work. In the next phase is the creation of digital assets. These are digital assets that would provide the content of learning which will be deployed through the mobile platform. Now, in creating this, it is very important to take into consideration the usability of the whole learning object, that it must be usable on ubiquitous devices. The digital assets can be in the form of video, text, quizzes, and higher order thinking, the use of branching scenarios, and all this will be then formed together educational resources which then can be deployed onto the mobile platform. Once these digital assets have been created based on the learning needs of the students and using the various engaging and interactive media that's available, they then need to be deployed onto a system through which the content and the resources can be accessed by the learner. Now, this can be a learning management system, or it can be via an app which can be downloaded, from which they can then access these resources for them to learn. And the other strategy that one can use is, instead of them coming to learn through a pull strategy, is to use a push strategy in which learning bites are transmitted to their mobile device periodically to increase their curiosity and engage them in learning. Similarly, assessment can also be done periodically, pushed to their mobile device. Analytics are important into seeing what are the areas of weakness in the individual, and then to perform targeted learning. Also, the analytics will show which of our educational resources are being utilized effectively, and to then fine-tune our future resources based on the analytics. The analytics will then lead to a personalized teaching space in which we can then deploy curriculum that is relevant and needed by the individual learner based on the performance at the various assessments. And it also will allow for the feedback to be obtained on the learner and the faculty. This provides powerful tools to evaluate the effectiveness of our learning program. The whole learning program requires an evaluation process to ensure quality, and that if in reality learning has occurred. Measuring the learner's knowledge is one form which can be do as part of the summative student evaluation, or one can use Kirkpatrick's evaluation going beyond the level 1 to level 4, where there has been definite outcomes that have been produced that are positive as a result of the learning. And this will be the sound and robust evaluation of the effectiveness of the learning program.